Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's reoccurring webcast of Aqua Data Studio. We dive right in now and start recording these. So rather than any dead air time, we'll just dive right in. So thanks everybody for joining. Under Help About, you can see the link to the community site, which is aquafold.com. And then that can show you where we are right now as well. So Aquafold was the company and is still the website. So that has a lot of branding and resources here on the home page, and then some of these drill down tabs. And then here's where we are today. So this is a reoccurring webcast. This is, I think, the second or third one we've had with the new release of version 20.6. So we encourage folks to rejoin or share this with colleagues, and there's a reoccurring calendar in terms of the future webcasts. And then a lot of other tabs or resources. Rather than clicking around too much, maybe I'll just highlight a few of them. And then we have some slides just to introduce the product and some terminology. So the parent page is aquafold.com, and then here's the product page. And so that's a good area to explore. And then this product has been around since the early 2000s. So sometimes I like to mention that this tool has been driven by end users like yourselves, and so really a tool for different types of users or responsibilities. Aqua connects to different types of databases, right? So traditional RDBMS platforms, but also cloud or even NoSQL environments. And then Aqua is a tool for different types of users, right? So you have DBAs that use Aqua, developers that use Aqua, data and business analysts that use Aqua Data Studio. So it's a versatile tool and cross-platform, and you can drill into these pages to learn more information about those areas. So here's the list of all the databases, and then you could click on a database and see everything that Aqua does for that platform. So here, for example, what we do for Amazon Redshift, or here what Aqua can do for Oracle. So a lot of help here just on the website. And then there's videos. There's videos like these. Longer overview videos, then there's 3 to 5 minute videos. So you have a lot of resources. There's a YouTube channel for Aqua Data Studio, and these type of recordings get posted and shared as well. And then the documentation. So you have full documentation from the help menu on everything we show here. And with a 20-year product, you know, that can be very beneficial. So you have a keyword search, and then the different chapters and terminology here. You'll become familiar with. So let's keep moving. Again, this is a reoccurring webcast. Because of the group, all the lines are on mute for these reoccurring webcasts, but you do have the ability to submit questions through the GoToWebinar dialog boxes, and then we can look at those before we finish, or there'll be some follow-ups in terms of any questions you might have had, and if there were outstanding questions from during the demonstration. Okay, so let's just introduce a few slides, and that will help with terminology. First of all, we've introduced the latest version 20.6, and so here's a picture of the new homepage. So that gets updated, and then for those of you that are familiar with Aqua and joining this to hear about some of the new features, here's a list of these, and we'll introduce some of these throughout the presentation as well. So you can download from the Aquafold site, or if you're an existing customer, you can use the portals link. And so that's just one of the tabs on the parent page. You see portals. So that's for existing customers, so you don't have to fill out the question form to download the new 20.6 version. And then here are some key areas of what we've added. New database version support. So that's always part of Aqua new releases, right? So Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, Postgres have all been updated in terms of versions of those vendor platforms. There's some advanced functionality with Oracle, BLOB, and CLOB editing data. So you have the ability to upload BLOB or CLOB data, and we'll take a look at that, where you can see, see those type of binary large object types or character large object types. Amazon Redshift has the external databases now in the navigation tree, and so that's similar to other areas within Aqua that some of you are familiar with. And so within the navigation tree for Amazon Redshift, you'll see now a drill down for external databases. And then some other product fixes, updated drivers. Snowflake now is the single sign-on within the register server, and SQL Azure has user-defined table types. So just a sample of some of the core features, but this is documented on the what's new, so there's different resources to show those in more detail. Here's just a quick visual of all the different vendors that Aqua supports and connects to, and so that's a powerful visual. We say 30, but there's more than 30 when you think about the different variations of these platforms, right? There's different versions of SQL Server and Oracle. Amazon RDS, they added last release, so Oracle, MySQL, so the traditional RDBMS platforms that now Amazon hosts in their RDS environment. Okay, so again, these are documented. You can drill down into the platform page and see all the areas that Aqua can help. Mention the different types of users that benefit from Aqua Data Studio. So you might be looking at Aqua as a DBA, but see value for the analysts that need to access databases without as much experience, or perhaps you have developers or other colleagues that use multiple tools, and you can save time by reducing the number of tools you use. And with a cross-platform tool like Aqua Data Studio, that can really help justify and really pay for itself with the time saving of clicks and bouncing between different products. So really a tool for different types of users, and anyone that has the word data in their job title or team name would benefit from using Aqua Data Studio in some way or another. Okay, so here's some terminology, and then I like to show this with the product in the background, where you can see some of these naming conventions, right? And so we'll start by connecting or registering a server. And so you see on the left the list of databases that I've connected to, and it's very easy for you to build your tree and customize this in different ways. So we'll talk about the registering servers and some tips and tricks there. And then exploring in the database navigator reveals many features in Aqua. And so there's a clean layout with Aqua with a single toolbar, primary main menus, and then right-click functionality, and then you'll become familiar with how to move quickly using Aqua. So that's appreciated with folks like us who have used tools for many years, and some tools become too heavy and too complex, too many wizards. And so experienced users like the architecture of Aqua Data Studio, and they can move quickly and get their job done. All right, then a core feature within the foundation of the product is the query analyzer. And so that's the SQL editor. If you're comfortable typing SQL, that's where you'll have the query analyzers open, and we'll spend time introducing the query analyzer. Lots of ways of bringing SQL or building scripts, parsing through SQL scripts, and then executing to get to data sets, or executing DDL to create objects, create environments. So the query analyzer is a core feature within Aqua Data Studio. And then the other window with query in the window name is the query builder, right? So the query builder, perhaps more junior, but a big time saver, right? Where you can drag and drop tables and build SQL without being an expert at typing SQL syntax. And so I know for some of the newer platforms, it was easy to get started just by using the query builder. And then the query builder files are savable and shareable artifacts. And so the query builder and the visual analytics are very appealing to the data analyst or business user that needs to quickly get to result sets or data sets, and then perhaps tell a story with the visual analytics or data visualizations. So you can build your charts and graphs, and then share those in different ways. So for those of you who have used a BI type tool, this is part of Aqua. And so you have that again as part of this studio concept of an all-in-one type tool. The table data editor, helpful for looking at data or making data changes, and then tied to the new version that we're introducing this month and recently, the BLOB and CLOB support in Oracle SQL Server, for example, is found in the table data editor. So we'll take a look there where you can view these type of data sets as an image file, and then there's ways to load and upload blobs and clobs now in the table data editor. Then different features are found in certain right-click menus, but also probably tied to a core menu as well. And so the next grouping here can be found under the tools drill down. So the import export data wizard, some of the scripting, schema scripting or DDL scripting, server scripting, those are found from the tools menu. And then in the right click menu, so you have shortcuts to both of these areas. Compare features are very strong in Aqua Data Studio, from just quick object compares to more complex multiple object compares with schema compares. And then there's even command line utilities to launch compares. If we mentioned Fluid Shell as maybe more advanced shell utility that's embedded in Aqua for all the different platforms. So lots of ways, either from an icon or a main menu or a right-click menu, to launch these core features. But I find it helpful to see some of the terms in writing, and then we'll circle back to this, or I'll use this as an anchor just to make sure we cover the different core areas for the different users. The last two on the list here are not in a hierarchy, but maybe apply to DBAs more. And so if you're responsible for database administration, after you connect, that might be where you start in terms of the DBA tools drill down. These are some monitoring, storage, and user management areas. Or in the tree, you'll see management, security. So that applies to database administration, right? Some of us connect and dive right into data. DBAs need to create users, change passwords, manage storage, right? So there's different approaches depending on your job title and how you need to use Aqua Data Studio. And then ER is entity relationships, so table relationship modeling. You can diagram tables and views and look at relationships, and then document those or drill in or generate scripts, maybe feed those to other more enterprise-wide modeling tools. But very quick ER modeling is a benefit of Aqua Data Studio, yet still powerful in terms of the object support and documentation, and then collaboration, where you can share these with other users, these Aqua Data Studio files, the ER Modeler, the Query Builder, Visual Analytics. Okay, so here's just a summary of, again, the themes with Aqua. Many databases supported, lots of SQL and time saving for working with SQL or structured query language. Data visualizations is the visual analytics, DBA features throughout. So really a tool for different types of users and easy ways to just download and get started. Okay, so let's dive in. Again, there's ways to download from the user site. And then I can have Aqua looking more fancy or more simple, and so let's maybe even take both those approaches. But everything we show here, you can download, and then there's a time trial period for you to be able to evaluate. And so when you first install Aqua Data Studio, maybe I'll just open up maybe a more simplified layout. This is what Aqua would look like for you, where you'd have a new environment, and then you'd be prompted to connect to a database, and then you can populate and customize the look and feel of the user interface here. So here on the left-hand side is where I have all my database connections, but that's flexible. And I'll show you some recommendations there. Then here on the right-hand side is where I have shortcuts to some of my own files or version control, for example. So different ways of customizing the left and right-hand side of your desktop. And then you have your workspace in the middle portion here. So you can see some different tabs of code that I have opened up and that we'll take a look at. And I'll try to navigate with a little pace so that people can follow, and then you have benefits or ways you can revisit this on your own. But here's the little drop-down arrow where you can see the ability to move these windows around, right? So pinned and docked. I have my navigation tree on the left-hand side, but those are flexible, right? So you have that customization capability. And then there's also the concept of some floating or standalone windows. So whenever you have a tab, you can float that window, just right-click floating, right? And then some are that way by default. And so notice in the main menu that we'll start with in terms of the server main menu, and here's how to connect. So we'll start there. Then the query main menu is for working with SQL, and some areas are defined there, and shortcut keys that you might be looking for or expect. But then you have some similarity with some of these standalone or floating windows. So the query builder, the visual analytics, the ER modeler, those are floating, or you see on my sys tray examples of those, right? So here, for example, is a query builder where I could drag and drop tables and build SQL. So that this is an existing query builder. Here's new, open, recent. So we'll introduce how to build a query builder. If you're working with data, the visual analytics is the Tableau-like or Power BI functionality embedded inside of Aqua. And so here's an example of a visual analytics file where you can drag and drop your dimensions and measures and start building data visualizations, right? So that's similar in terms of the new, open, recent, right? So same for query builder, same for visual analytics. And then the ER modeler, similar, new, open, recent, and then generate for reverse engineer, right? And so here I have some entity relationship diagrams where I can see tables, views, relationships, navigate, and then take action here through the tools menu. So similar look and feel for some of these windows, but we'll lead up to those. So maybe just to back up a little bit and start with the very first icon, which is connecting. So the very first icon, register server or server, register server, is where you get started with Aqua. So you can see an alphabetical list. So no real hierarchy, just alphabetical. And then as you highlight a database platform, you can see the development that's gone on in this window and what's needed to connect to that database. And so one of the great things about Aqua is it's a Java tool. And so it does install on different databases, different operating systems to allow you to connect to your different databases. So if you use a Mac, you can install Aqua on a Mac. If you use a Linux client, you can install Aqua there. So it's bundled with JDBC drivers, and that's what makes Aqua great and easy to use to get started connected to your database. So if you start with the very first icon, you can highlight a connection, and then there's the driver that's bundled for that connection, right? And so here you can see for Amazon Redshift, I can name that, give my login credentials, what's the location of that server or IP address, right? If I was working in, say, a DB2 environment, similar name, credentials, location. Here, if I was to choose, say, Microsoft SQL Server, now you see some customizations or hooks into that platform, right? So Microsoft has some authentication choices, so Aqua's built those in as well. So here you can also see the different versions that are supported, right? If I just hover over this, there's 6 or 7 different versions of SQL Server. So even this list isn't as robust as it could be in terms of the different platforms supported. What's neat about this hover over text is you can see some of the Amazon hosted environments, right? Where here, Postgres, for example, I can see these different Aurora Postgres, Google Postgres, AWS Postgres, right? For Oracle, we do a ton, right? So you can see here, you can use your Oracle client, the OCI, or you can use the bundled JDBC driver. Snowflake was added recently, right? So a lot of support here. And then, once you make a connection, you kind of move from there. So if I right click, I can go into server properties to get back into the properties for that connection. So here you can see, for example, a color coding that I assigned a certain connection. And then you can test this, right? So you test the connection, you have the 2 handshake green check, letting you know that your VPN is correct and your credentials are correct. So then, you can work from there, right? So here, here's a SQL Server environment. If I go into SQL Server properties, here I can see the properties here again, test that connection, make sure everything's working. And then maybe I'd clone this or work from here, right? So I could right click here, say register server clone, and then, just give this a name that makes sense for me, right? So here, I'll just call this my SQL DB, right? Or maybe I'll say SQL Server so we don't think it's MySQL. Okay, right, so test that, gets 2 green checks, say okay, saves that, duplicates that connection, right? So there's that duplicated connection, and then I could work from there, right? So it's very easy to, once you build a connection, clone that, and then notice here on the left where here, I have a connections folder. So see how these have a similar name, right? Where here I could drill into these and see here I've named this folder. So this is just my Explorer folder. Here are these folders on the left. So I could just right click here, say create a server group, give that a folder name, and that's how I can organize, you know, different connections. So here I've been showing some of the new versions in Amazon, DB2, SQL Server, MySQL. So you can easily create these different folders and then move quickly. All right, so maybe if your starting point is just working with SQL, we could start there. So, you know, you have the ability just to type SQL, right? If I just start typing SQL, you have color coding and pop-up editors, and I could choose a table or field, and then you have different separators where there's go statement separators, semicolons. You can customize things to look the way you'd like. And then I could just run a single statement with the green run arrow, right? Run a SQL statement, bring back my result set, right? So I could just type multiple SQL statements, and then you'd see again pop-ups for other tables or fields, and then you could easily execute one or multiple statements. So to open up a query analyzer, you can just, you know, right click on a connection and there's the query analyzer. Or if you have a connection highlighted, then you can see from the server main menu, server query analyzer, and then that would open up a query analyzer for you. So you'll have multiple query analyzers open. So here back to the previous piece of code I was working in where I started typing SQL statements. So here's the definition of the green run arrows, right? So query, parse, execute individual statement or execute all. So you can execute multiple or one. Here's the table data editor, execute edit, and then there's the execution plan, right? So we'll look at those in different ways, but here's parse, where if I parse through this to see what's made up of this editor, here I can see, okay, there's 5 statements here. And then I could run them all, right? So the green run arrow would run all 5, and then here I have different result sets. Or I could run an individual statement, right? I could just click on a line and then say, just run that single statement. And then we'll talk about taking action on your data, right? Of course, you could right click here and there's all kinds of cut and paste or save as. So we'll talk about working with the data here shortly. And then you have some of the other areas. The table data editor has a little pencil icon, right? So that's a way to work with table data. But also just in the tree, if I start right clicking on objects, there's scripting features, right? So here's some databases I have set up, and if I drill into the navigation tree, I can see pieces of code or objects, right? So here's stored procedure code, for example, or here's just a list of tables. And so here I was typing SQL. Well, what if I just right clicked on a table and then asked Aqua to write SQL for me? So here I could say write a select star statement or write a qualified path statement, and then that would automatically write that for me. And then I could execute, you know, one or multiple statements this way. So you have the flexibility that you might like, and ultimately, you know, the query builder was another area that we mentioned here in terms of the overview list. And so, you know, we just started by connecting and registering. Now I'm in the navigation tree a little bit, but also introducing the query analyzer. So we'll show some more areas here. But the query builder is also easy to use, and you can find it on a right-click menu, where here I could right-click, and there's the query builder, right? Or from the main menu, you can see the query builder, right? New, open, recent. And so then also from the server query builder, right? So this would be a graphical drag and drop area or white space, right? Where I could drag and drop tables from the left-hand navigation tree, right? So here, if I had a database that I knew I was working with those tables, I could right-click, here's the query builder. Now I see those tables, and maybe if I wasn't an expert at writing SQL, I could just drag over a table and click the green run arrow. And so that's a way to easily execute SQL. So here we just showed a few different ways. I typed SQL, I right-clicked on a table and had Aqua automatically write a SQL statement for me. And then here I drag over a table to the white space, and I can see the SQL statement being built for me there. Or I could customize this more, right? I could drag and drop certain columns, or say, all right, let's have my product ID, product name, price, and then execute that. And so now here's a result set. So different flexibility there, depending on your experience level. So we'll talk a little bit more about the query builder. But then let's expand the query main menu, and here are some features you might expect, right? Or Maybe if I opened up some stored procedure code, for example. So here I'll just right click and say open up a procedure editor. And so just to give you a different look and feel, there's compile or stored procedure in SQL Server, right? So you have these different pieces of code or tabs, and then if you right click, different areas that you might expect in the right click menu, from formatting to looking at maybe more complex code, right? So here I could run a SQL statement, but here's the execution plan, where this is for maybe DBAs or folks that are responsible for performance and looking at the cost of statements. And then I could diagram that, right? Or here I could right click, there's format current statement. Here are formatting settings. They have listed as beautify options, right? So these are things you'd expect in a 20-year tool. And so of course they're there in Aqua as well. Here under the query main menu is the SQL history. So that's helpful, right? With a cross-platform tool, you can see Aqua will keep track of different code you've been working on. So I work with some different machines, and that's helpful, where here I can at least get back to an archive of any SQL I've executed. I can see what platform that SQL was executed in. There's the SQL statement, right? And then here's even the window in Aqua that was run from. So as I was mentioning, query analyzer, query builder, that can be helpful, right? So these are easy ways of letting you move quickly and get back to previous work, or save you time and share and collaborate, right? So SQL history, and this is all well documented, right? So here, if I go into help, online documentation, right, here are terms we're starting to become familiar with, right? Here's registering a server. So we've talked about that, right? Here's the query analyzer. And then you just have many drill down areas, pictures, details, right? So lots of documentation in the online wiki, and that's a great way to get more efficient using Aqua Data Studio. Okay, so let's maybe keep moving here. So we started talking about some different areas in the query analyzer. One of them is the table data editor, and so when we were mentioning, just navigating into a table, for example, here I could just right click on a table, or there's table data edit, and then you see the pencil icon in the main grid also, right? So if I was just working on an individual table or SQL statement, you could invoke the table data editor. And then if you have a statement with multiple tables, you'll be prompted which table are you working on. So here, maybe I'll stick with this editor where we're working on some different tables. So here I could click on the pencil icon, and that would open up the table data editor. So here I could make changes to the cells individually, right? Just rename that data or type in the grid. Here I could say add rows or remove rows. Again, your database permissions would apply. And then, here you can see the SQL being built for you. If you're making changes, you can see what kind of changes are being made. And then you have the undo and redo, right? So here are clear changes, clear individual changes. So this can be helpful. Or then even see the permissions needed to execute that SQL in case you didn't have those. And then this is where I was mentioning, you do have the ability here to view BLOB and CLOB data. Right, and so here I could view pictures from table data editor, right? So blob object types or character object types, and then here's the edit, load content from file, save content from file. So this is where you can load and upload these different types of objects. And then here, here's an example of a blob inside of Oracle, where I can invoke that just by navigating my tree and getting into an object type or field in the navigation tree, and then just right click, and you have that capability to view the data or load the data for blobs or clobs, those different type of object types. Okay, so then the query builder can get more advanced than just basic. So here's, say, a couple of tables from DB2 where I can see multiple relationships. You could drill into that join, right? Just right click, go into the join properties, and there you can see the ability to edit that and how that would change your code. or you can run with existing relationship fields and then get to your data that way. So these are savable, shareable Aqua files, right? So the file save as would allow you to save this as a query builder file, and then share this with other users, or perhaps create some kind of repository of where where other users can benefit from sharing these. So here, here's an example of an individual query builder file, and then on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, you can see the visualization or the icon of that, right? So here you can see I have SQL statements, but then here's ER modeler files with XED. And then you can also see the diagram icon, maybe a little tiny, but the QBW is for query builder files, right? So helpful, probably ways that some of us maybe first got started, working with tables and building SQL, right? But then you can get more advanced here, right? Maybe just take the code in different ways, right? Share this, and ultimately maybe you'll stay in the query analyzer once you become familiar with working with SQL. Okay, so, but let's talk about working with data a little bit more. Just keep an eye on the clock. Again, we try to have these interactive, and sometimes there's a bit of foundations needed for some of these terms, but now we can maybe start moving a little more quickly. So we've introduced connecting, exploring, dove into working with SQL, typed SQL, dragged and dropped tables in the query builder to get to SQL. So now let's talk a little bit more about taking action on your data. Right? We mentioned the table data editor, but the query builder results set and the query analyzer results set, look similar, right? Where here, notice the Excel icon, right? Or if I right click here, save results, and then ultimately here's the visual analytics icon. And so that's how you could bring this data into the visual analytics portion, the area that looks like Tableau or Power BI, right? So again, we have some different examples there. Maybe I'll move back to just those SQL statements that we were working with here. So let me just run an individual SQL statement just to get a single result set. And then, this would look similar here, whether you're in the visual query builder or in the query analyzer, right? So you can highlight a group of data and then right click, or just right click and you'll see save results, and that opens up into a floating window where you have some choices, right? So maybe you just want to insert or generate insert statements to run these insert statements into a new table that you're creating, so you can create a sample of test data, maybe just delimited files. And then this leads into, say, the import export, right? So here I could just export this data set from SQL Server in a delimited file and step through this wizard. And then perhaps to import, right, you launch the tools import wizard, right? Or if I right click here, shortcut tools menu, here's import data, right? So import, export data, you can launch those from the right click menu. Maybe I'll just bring this more to the top of the window on the left here. So import data, right? This would allow me to say point to a delimited file, text file, see text file, Excel file. So I can point to those type of files, or maybe one that I just exported, for example, and then this wizard would step me through mapping data types and then inserting that data, right? So let me float this window just so you can see, and that's a little recommendation. You can right click float if you want a window to be standalone or maximized, right? And then you'll see the tabs here, right? So here, if I just click next through this wizard, here's where I could say, okay, I want to create, new table, or my new table, right? So whatever makes sense for you. This just stepping through an example here. So just stepping through the tabs, here's preview, right? Here's your separator. So you'll get used to some of these areas. Here's a quick preview, which is a neat feature in Aqua, right? So I can just click next and take a look. So here's the inserts, right? Here's the create, the table that I named it, right? So this is shareable, savable, right? And you can move quickly if you're developing test environments or you need to create something in another environment. So that's one way, just on an individual table. If I was working with multiple tables, for example, you could right click and work on multiple tables, right? So here, if I shift clicked, I could right click, and then there's scripting features for certain objects. Or maybe if I wanted to do a quick compare, right? You could highlight different fields, and then I could shift click, control click, and then right click, here's compare object, schema compare. So depending on where you click, and or if I right click on the full tree, there's my create, alter, drop table, right? Or if I'm a DBA, right click on a database, there's create, alter, drop database, right? Or if I'm working on stored procedures, right? Here's create, alter, and then debug stored procedures. So you want to right click where it makes sense, and you'll find different shortcuts and ways to move quickly. And then there's cloning, right? So yellow folder here, I could just open up a script or a SQL statement wherever I might have some code in different ways, and then I could just right click and say, okay, clone this, open up a duplicate tab, and now I'm working on both these pieces of code at the same time. And so those are quick tricks and recommendations that can let you move more quickly using Aqua. All right, so we've talked about the save as. Here's just Excel, right? This would just send that data to Excel with one click. So that can be helpful for some users. Then there's, there's cut and paste. I could just highlight, right click here, copy. Then there's pivot functionality. So, lots of features that you might expect or you're looking for, and other users have asked for them as well. So, okay, so those are some of the maybe legacy data features. Here's the exciting visual analytics area, right? And so here, for example, I have a visual analytics file where there's a lot you can do here. And so if you're just starting with a new visual analytics window, here I could say worksheet, new worksheet. And so this would open up a new tab for me. And then here you can see my dimensions and measures, right? So if you start from the visual analytics window, that would look similar, right? So here visual analytics new has the drag and drop white space for your dimensions and measures. And then it's saying, okay, what's the data you're working with? So this is how I could point to different data sets, right? I could say point to some data from SQL Server, or I could say data, connect to data. I could point to a result set from Amazon Redshift, right? Or maybe I have a lot of data in Excel, right? So you can point to Excel in the tree in Aqua, right? So here maybe I'll point to some Excel data, right? And then notice the intelligence here where here's a result set of just columns and rows. But when you bring your data into the visual analytics, as you might expect in a BI type tool, your data is separated into your dimensions and measures, where your measures are your numerical values, your dimensions are your non-numerical values. You can change these if that's the way your company views these values. So here, right click, I could say change to measure, convert to measure. I could right click here and say convert to dimension, right? Or you can dive right in and you have different templates here for data visualizations. And then these drag and drop property boxes, right? So, so maybe here I'll just create, say, a pie chart with a certain data set, right? So here, maybe I just want to see number of records based on a category name, right? So here's a quick bar chart, and maybe I want to change the color of this in a way that makes sense to me, right? So here's just a quick bar chart example, right? And I could maybe sort or flip-flop the X and Y axes, right? So I could flip-flop that easily, or maybe I want to sort. Maybe let's show, the most profitable or least profitable. So these are easy ways of working with the visualization sets. Here I could say, maybe add a new worksheet, right? So I could point to a result set and then say add new worksheet. And then maybe here I'll build a pie chart, right? So here I could say drag and drop again a measure, and then maybe I'll drag into the chart properties boxes one of these different values. So dimensions, some of the icons are tough to see, but there's a calendar and clock next to the date fields. There's a globe, right? There's ABC next to a string. So here I could say just drag and drop into the chart properties, and this might start to tell the story, right? So I could label this in different ways. And so now here's a bar chart, here's a pie chart, and then I could combine these in a dashboard, right? So worksheet, new worksheet, and then you can export these in different ways. But here, dashboard, new dashboard, that'll show the available worksheets, and I could name these. But then this is how you can combine Here's a result set from my SQL Server data. Here's another application that the business analysts are responsible for. And now you can allow them to access these different data sets and then start to tell a story, right? Or export this to decision makers. And there's the export PDF, HTML, right? Okay, so we like to mix up these presentations so they're not all the same, but we start to move a little bit quickly here and might start to show some different areas of interest depending on your responsibilities, right? And so we've started to we've showed some DBA areas, some data analyst areas, some developer areas, but there's a lot here, right? There's a lot to Aqua, and it's it's a very affordable tool as well, right? Low price point. Which really helps justify how it goes viral within your company and just start saving you time and allow you to do things that maybe you didn't have a tool to let you do before, right? So that can be really helpful. All right, so maybe let's just keep moving here. Here's a more fancy visual analytics file where you can have, this active, you can mouse over areas here, and then you can expand the analysis menu, and you can see some of these different terms that we use with calculated fields and reference lines and filters. So lots of advanced features here, and that's what's great about Aqua. Depending on your experience level, you can do a lot of things. And then the visual analytics, there's different tools in this space. Maybe you can save your company some money where they don't have to license other more expensive and complicated tools, and this could be a way to give users easy access to different areas, right? So here's some of the refresh capabilities within a visual analytics file, and then also just getting to the query, right? So this is within Aqua's visual analytics where here's the SQL statement. Maybe that could be handed off to somebody else, right? See, maybe a light bulb effect here. There's lots of ways that you can use Aqua, and then it grows in terms of user base within your company, and everybody's familiar with some of the terms and ways that you can use a tool like this. All right, so hopefully you got a feel there for some of the similarities with the look and feel of the query builder, the visual analytics. So then ER Modeler might step into more DBA areas, but that's okay. And then here would be a similar look and feel. So ER Modeler new would have the drag and drop white space where I could say pick a platform, right? So maybe I'll say Microsoft SQL Server 2019, say okay. And then here I could just forward engineer, right? I could drop a table here, start defining the structure of that table in a forward engineering or a modeling type look and feel. Then I could create a relationship between tables, right? So that's maybe forward engineering, where the tools menu would then allow you to take action on these tables or fields, right? So let me maybe switch to a more complex example, right? So here's a DB2 ER modeler, right? Or reverse engineered. And so, just to reverse engineer is very easy, right? I could just highlight a database, right click, and then there's ER diagram generator. So there's the shortcut step from the right click menu or from the main menu. So ER modeler generate, this is reverse engineering, where it's saying, okay, what's the database then that you're working with? And so here I could just navigate in the tree here and highlight that database, say okay. And then again, it knows, all right, these are the tables and views I'm working on. So I could check or uncheck or customize this in different ways. And then hit the catalog, hit the dictionary, turn that into a diagram. Let me share this with other users. So very easy to use, and then enough, right? It's tables, views, indexes, and constraints. And so, yeah, there are enterprise modeling tools, right? So some of you might know of those, right? If I go to the IDERA homepage, you can see, there's Aqua Data Studio, and then there's ER Studio, right? So if you need enterprise-wide modeling, IDERA has that and can help. This would be more tables, views, easy navigation here, tools menu, generate script, boom. I could quickly just say, all right, generate the script. Here's a preview of the DDL and, an enterprise modeling tool could easily digest this DDL script. And so that's some of the story we have, where we have support for many different databases here, and then the documentation can be helpful, right? So maybe I just want to generate a diagram for users. They don't need the data model, but they want to see the tables in a picture, right? So here's a Snowflake HTML report that you could just share, give the URL to users so they know what's out there, right? Here's Embarcadero Enterbase environment, right? Where they could, just see a summary or an overview, number of relationships, kind of an index HTML zip file. So this is ways of collaborating where, the DBAs could create this, show this to the analysts, and okay, great. Now the analysts know which tables to drag over in the query builder, right? So that's where some of the story here merges, where DBAs can create things like the ER model or ER diagram, and then they could do things too. So here's compare. So compare for say a DBA that wants to see how this model looks different from a previous model or a live database, right? So here, okay, these objects are the same, but these are in both models, but something's different. So there's the equals with the slash, right? Or here, this is only on one side, this is only on the other side, right? So you have these compare features, and then as I was mentioning, the compare main menu really has a lot, right? So here's schema compare. We kind of have a left and right hand side, and so here I could launch that, and you can see choose server, right? A little more quickly if I just multi-selected, right? So here I could say shift click or control click, and then right click, and then schema compare. Boom! It populates that for you. So that can be helpful. I ran a schema compare just to save some time here. So here's schema compare results, right? So this is nice and similar, right? Where you can see, okay, here's 4 objects in both, but different. These are only on one side, these are only on the other, right? And then here's, you could generate a report, summary. So some nice actions here. For same platform, you can synchronize differences. So that's the delta there. You can compare any, but to synchronize it would be, say, SQL Server to SQL Server or Oracle to Oracle. Here's some of the easy ad hoc compare, right? File compare. I could just point to any source or left side, right side, show differences. Boom. So there's, easy compare utility. And then you have that for different other areas. So tab, just any 2 tabs I have open, right? So the tabs meaning my query analyzers, right? So here I could choose just to do a side-by-side compare of different pieces of code and just see how those look, whether they're the same or not, right? So those are helpful. And then, some DBAs are very command line savvy, and so one of the special areas in Aqua is the Fluid Shell command line utility. So this might not be for everybody, but for some users, Fluid Shell is appealing. So this is a command line utility, a Unix shell utility built on top of Aqua, even for the newer type platforms, right? So this, you can start moving quickly here, but if I just right clicked on a connection, here's Fluid Shell, and so you could just, here if I just type /help, you can see all the utilities here, right? Or Control C on that. I could just invoke a new Fluid Shell window, and then I could just maybe change directories here. Maybe I'll go back one more directory. Right, so here, here I have some examples of a quick file compare, right? So here's, maybe I'll just type compare, and then just a second file compare. Just enter that, and boom, you can dive into a combination of command line with the user interface, right? So, okay, so those are some different areas that are probably appealing to different users in different ways. And then, of course, we do have DBA drill down utilities. So that might be an area of interest for some users. Here I've been in SQL Server, but if I was in DB2, for example, or let me navigate the tree a little bit here. So here are some different environments, right? So here's a DB2 environment. Here's a MySQL environment. Expanding the tree, you start to see some of the DBA areas, right? So databases, management, security. So users, roles, current activity, right? So here for DB2, I see management, security, right? And then SQL Server, I see snapshots, management, security. And so this leads to some of the DBA core administration features, where here under the DBA Tools right-click menu, you'll see a grouping of some advanced DBA areas, right? So usually it's this consistent list of managers, instance manager, and then storage security session. And so you can navigate the tree, but then you'll have some more capability through these floating manager windows, right? So here for SQL Server, so notice I drilled into management, but here, here's the instance manager, storage manager, security manager, session manager. So if you want to see current activity in an environment, these are ways to point to that environment and then quickly open up the full standalone window, right? And so here for SQL Server, I see my session stats and locks. I have some of these other tabs open for us already. So here, here's say Oracle Storage Manager, right? Here's the SGA Manager in Oracle. So these are areas that DBAs know and are responsible for when they get a call that the database is having a problem. This is where they can drill in, take action, and perhaps terminate a session, right, or resolve a bottleneck. So there's core administration features for different platforms. We do a lot for Oracle. You can see the additional list of Oracle managers. But then for any of these platforms, you really have some of these advanced capabilities also. Okay, so maybe let's pause there. Getting towards the top of the hour. Usually these go a little bit longer just to make them, dynamic and interesting. But there's a lot of resources at your fingertips, and we showed them some of them to start. And so, help about. There's the link to the community site, so that's a great resource. And then help online documentation. This is another resource for you. So, if you're just getting started registering, here you could pick a database platform, and here's how to connect to Postgres. Here's how to connect to lots of variations of Postgres, right? So take advantage of the help and the documentation. And then again, this is a reoccurring webcast. We flip-flop the times from morning for California to later on the East Coast. So that's just to be flexible. And then, there's different account managers that might reach out to you. If you can just download and purchase on your own. But then if you have perhaps a team or a larger group, there's some economies of scale that you might want to connect with a sales manager, account manager, and then they can help in terms of growing that user base or some benefits of pricing and cost. Okay, so thanks everybody for joining. Let me pause the recording here, and then we can revisit the questions, or there'll be follow-ups on those. Okay.